Needing your life naked. Cool. Hmm? I'm trying to set this thing. Yep. Experimenting with the thing. How is the China thing? Still gonna work out. It's like I got a plan.
I sit down at home, decided to watch some TV, listening to the news by Gordon Mosley. I listening to the things that he say he tracking tonight, paying close attention to make sure I hear it right. But when I hear the things that he mentioned on the news, I had to declare them kind of thing got me confused. I hear some things where the ERC noticing, and it convinced me that people ain't learning nothing. We hear so many times about them big name calling, and they say the ERC pretend that they didn't learn nothing. But once you're black and you just decide to say a word or two, bet your life on that they say the ERC coming for you. Listen to the things you just hear on social media. Only one set of people allowed to talk in one Guyana. I still say nothing, black people in learning. But this is my concern, I hope one day black people will learn. ERC that I would like to know, if any of his members happens to be black people. And if that is the case, I want them to answer this call. Tell me how come none of them ain't got no voice at all. You're showing signs of weakness and you're afraid to be fair, and we see the same thing keep happening year after year. And the day will come when all this nonsense will stop. That will be the day when black people decide to wake up. Not so long ago, something terrible happened. This young Indian man want to kill out all black people by poison. But if his shoes was on the other foot, would have been a big threat. But up to this day, this ERC can't do nothing as yet. How come it's only black people committing cybercrime? When pretty on social media fussing people all the time, I still saying black people in learning. But one day will come when the entire table will turn. Issues we see they fail to condemn, because these people think that the law is only for them. And anybody else who decide to file a complaint, they go call you a racist and don't want to hear nothing. Plenty complaint from time to time has been brought to their attention, but because of this one-sided cybercrime is why they don't show any concern. There's only one set of people that they really care about, and black people must take the abuse and shut them out. Kidaki Amsterdam went to court just recently for an issue that was highlighted by the same ERC. And with breakneck speed, the police decide to jump on his case. Without a search warrant, they went and search up the man's place. Let us all agree that black people under different laws for you and me just because we black. I still singing, black people in London. To all my black friends, we must put a stop to all this nonsense. Cybercrime laws to keep people silent, just to make sure nobody criticize this government. And while that is a very clear case of dictatorship, it is no surprise that the ERC ignoring it. Why only the chosen few is allowed to have things their way, when people like me and you must have nothing to say? And when ministers in the government start to launch their attack, you never hear this ERC come out and talk about that. They send a policeman all the way to New York. This fella went up there to serve a cold someone on Rick Fort. Under this this government decide to fabricate a case, but like they forget the warning they get from Latisha James. The vice president described that he used as a low life. Because of this kind of abuse, he don't have a wife. I still singing, black people in learning. Just the other day, I hope your man say help is on the way.
All right, so today we are here at Club Twilight up in Buxton, and we are here to talk about all that's going on up here. Trust me, if you are on the East Coast, you're in Buxton, you're in town, you're looking for a place to get away to, this is the place. The Cutters, mwah. Listen, I'll be having some just now again. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, the ambience is beautiful, fully air conditioned. The decor is on point. The music's on point. Everything's on point. It's just me. I need some work. But everything else that belongs to this club here is on point. So if you want to find a nice little place, or you can just drive out of town and have some drinks, have some food, you can call, you can order your stuff and just take it. You don't have to stay. Or if you want to stay here, that's what's up. And of course, they have special events for Valentine's. You can rent a hall. You can rent a hall, honey. You can rent a hall for weddings, for birthday parties, to have a bash. I hope he edits that out. But you know, whatever it is, this is definitely the place to be. So it's on Sideline Dam. You definitely want to ensure that you check this place out. Put it on your to-do list. All right, on your to-do list. This is definitely the place to check out, you know, a really cool, chill spot here in Buxton. I like this. Buxton needed this. We needed this. I needed this. You definitely needed too. Thank you. All right, so you might be wondering where we are. Still in Buxton at Club Twilight. That's where we are. So Club Twilight also has like an Airbnb as well. So you could come, drink, drunk, and come in the back here and lie down. Look at that. Look at that. Perfection. And the people come in the room and so on. The bed sheet matching the blind, matching the carpet, matching the this, matching the that. We know but we things in Buxton don't play with we. So definitely if you want to come and, you know, you may be having a wedding or whatever and you just want to overnight and just have a good time because you're going to be drunk. We got too much road accidents. So you definitely want to come, drink, have a good time. They have several rooms that you can rent. You have your toilet, you have your bath, you have your sink, you have your dining area, you have the bed. This is nice. I like it. Anyways, to my friends and my family, if you're looking for me, I'll be overnighting. Also for those persons who are traveling in from overseas, you want a nice, cozy place out of town, then Club Twilight, call them up, look them up on social media. They have their own Facebook page, and ensure that you come up the side and have a good time. Have a good time. Have a good time. Sorry. I'm sorry. That's it.
Stop running around like headless chicken. Go to Ashton's Marketplace for whole and cut chicken, beef, pork, processed meats like bacon, beef franks, smoked ham, ground pork, calabresa, and lots more. Ashton's offers wholesale and retail. Check them out. Call 613-2332 or WhatsApp 434-327-3955. Ashton's Marketplace at 72 Rob Street, Border. Don't be a victim. Beat the heat with EC Crystals. Party ice in large and small quantities. Call 682-7981 or visit us at Club Twilight, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. EC Crystals. Pure party ice.
Are you looking for tents to rent? Well, look no further. At EC Party Rentals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North, we have tents in all sizes and colors. All sizes of tents we have. Small tents, big tents, medium tents, extra large tents. Call us on 622-5933. We have what you need. EC Party Rentals. Big on tents.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop, located in the East Rheinveld Market Meat Section. Call us on 609-7168, 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more.
Are you hosting an event? Do you need ice, party ice in large or small quantities? Then call us at 622-5933 for the best party ice available. $1,000 per bag. We do delivery. EC Crystals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Call to have your orders filled today. Planning a party? Worry no more. We have all the supplies you need. At EC Party Rentals, we have folding chairs, folding tables, square tables, round tables, long tables, short tables, big tables. We have chairs, red chairs, gold chairs, white chairs, crystal chairs, chairs of all type, throne chairs. What you want, we have. Food warmers, coolers, ice, beverages. At EC Party Rentals, we have what you need to have a good time. You plan the party, we do the work. Call us 622-5933. EC Party Rentals. Let's keep your party going. Are you hosting an event? Do you need ice, party ice in large or small quantities? Then call us at 622-5933 for the best party ice available. $1,000 per bag. We do delivery. EC Crystals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Call to have your orders filled today.
I'm your host, Kidaki Amsa. Welcome to the program. How you been? How was you yesterday? How was you last night? Talkers, good morning. Welcome to the morning program at Camps TV. How have you been? How was you yesterday? How was you last night? What were you able to achieve yesterday? Remember, set smart goals and work consistently to achieve them. Okay? And remember, everything doesn't come together at once. We build brick by brick by brick by brick. And so let us be resilient and consistent and continue to build brick by brick by brick. Don't worry with the trenches. Don't worry those who want to come and create problems to you. Just turn a blind eye to them. I saw one of them calling me early morning, monkey. Yeah, monkey. But I wonder if they look inside the bedroom before they come outside. Because I know monkey, they're right there. And I wonder if they got any photograph of their ancestors. Because I know monkey, they're right there. So monkey see, monkey do. Good. Don't worry them, man. They watch your time sometimes. It's Thursday. Another day for us to have a discussion with former Minister of Finance, Winston Jordan, on the economics. But of course, there are other things that you would like to hear about. Everybody is telling me Mohammed went to Buxton a couple of days ago, 2 days ago, I think, I met with Buxtonians and so on and so forth. And a video is circulating of a young man giving vent to his feeling. Everybody is entitled to their own opinions. But you know, a lot of what he has said is facts in terms of how the Granger government behaved. Yeah. But the reality is, that is not all the Granger government did. And they say you do good, you do good, you suck wood. You can be doing good all the days of your life, and that one time you make a slip up, and then nobody forgives you for it. Nobody forgives you for it. Right? And I find among us, African Guyanese especially, we are usually hard on our own. We don't forgive our own. We don't forgive our own easily. We hold that grudge and we go to the grave with it. But we are quick to forget the ills of other people. We're quick to forget what they did to us. And we're quick to play the bigger person when it comes to other people. But we would rather die with that grudge when it comes to our own people. Of all the things Granger did, he didn't return to Buxton to say thank you. Of all the things Granger did, he used to come in the village and go by his friend and sit down and have a good evening or whatever. Visit the gas station over Morris Wilson and so on. Of all the things Basil Williams did, he turned up at a meeting and he said, I come to follow my friend. Were those the only things that they did? The same young man who was talking, ask him if he doesn't have at least 1 acre land in the Buxton Dam, resulting from the Rural Agricultural Infrastructure Development Program launched by the Granger administration. Ask him if they didn't make efforts to clear the backlands. They cleared the lands, they prepared the lands, and they handed it over to folks like him. Ask him that. Ask him if they didn't provide farming implements and machinery to the community to aid farmers. Ask him that. Ask him if two boats weren't, was it two or one boat? I think two boats were organized, but one might have been delivered for farmers to access the backlands via the canal. Ask him if a technical team didn't come and make an assessment of the dams in the community, as in Friendship, Brush Dam, Sideline, and Buxton, to determine which was best suited for a fair weather road. Ask him that. Can you do these things if you're out of office, if you're out of power? No, you can't do them. Ask him how many Buxtonian youths were brutalized by the Guyana members of the Guyana police force or murdered by a phantom squad or a killer squad during the Granger government. Ask him that. Ask them that. And when they can answer you honestly, then quite frankly, I don't have a grouse. I don't have a grouse. But a lot of people see what is before the camera. They don't see what is behind the camera. And I'll tell you a story. Just as how we say Gita jumped from the key to the palm tree to the cup. The person behind the Mohammed visit, I know for a fact. Jump from the bell to the key to the cup is a political hopscotcher. And how can I come to that conclusion? Life is funny. I am from the south of the village where this visit took place. But it took place on the middle street, the western middle street, as they call them, Pandam. Right? I saw, anyhow, let me not say that. I drove through the village that day. Maybe, I don't know exactly when the visit took place. But when I drove through, I'm talking time here. But when I drove through the village, I went down the sideline dam, turned east and go up the Pandam. And I passed this particular individual right at the junction where this meeting was being held. And I said to myself, is what this one doing here? I wonder if he switched to the PPP by now. Because I know the guy. I'm not talking about the youngster who was talking. I'm talking about one who I suspect to be one of the main organizers of Mohammed coming into the village. He is Muslim too. At least so he said. Right? I'll stop cussing Kibon until he get for me. Leave Kibon alone. Kibon has been a positive contributor. At least we could banter together. Right? And so I said, I wonder what this one up to. Like he organizing for the PPP this time wrong. In my mind. And I left and I went my way. Only to receive this video later of this thing. And I can make that association because the youngster who was talking, who was very vocal, has a very close relationship with this same guy. And he is one of the persons who I can say beyond the shadow of a doubt, without fear of contradiction, was responsible for the failure of developing that very co-op and other things in this community for farmers. This is a man who, sometimes I don't like to go there because it comes across as personal, but you live in a community, you see what happens in a community. This is a man who sat as the vice chairman of the Buxton Falls NDC, recognized that a relative of his was occupying and coveting other people's land and refused to say a word about it because they are related. And he didn't want to make bad friends, he didn't want to make bad feelings with his nephew, cousin, whatever the relationship. These people ain't got no qualms about what they do for clout. Right? And so while I respect everybody's right to choose a political allegiance, but I am saying that when we do that, we must do it from a position of honesty. I sit here and I tell you all every day, Granger dropped the ball. The coalition did not do as well as they could have done. Not only because of Granger, but because of a lot of other people. Somebody's at my gate. Yeah, give me a minute. It's a living. Talkers, y'all be restrained there. Yeah. So I'm saying a lot of folks in the Granger government, a lot of them who jump ship also, can be held responsible for a lot of failings of the Granger government. But I am saying that the Granger government, for the short time it has been in office, it has done better than the PPP. And I'm talking about this short-sightedness, this quick to forgive and forget other people and holding this grudge against you. And let me ask you this question. All of y'all, I want to answer this question. Where was Muhammad? Azzuddin Muhammad, Shell Muhammad, where were the Muhammads when the PPP and the Phantom Squad and the Killer Squad and Raja Khan and everybody else was slaughtering African Guyanese? Where were they? Where were these people when Buxtonians were being brutalized and murdered and taken advantage of? Where were they? And so we're looking at the speck in our own eyes, but we ain't seeing the freaking log in somebody else. Right? Something is wrong with us. Something is wrong with us. And why we behave like that? Because we are usually blinded by filthy lucre. That's what we're blinded by. And you might tell me, say Mohammed got enough money. And he got a youth lockdown with it. And he got other things that he does get them to. I can't tell you all his work. But you all know what the young people like. So I'm asking the young people, there's the existence y'all want? Y'all want an existence for people to criminalize you in their interest in getting into power, and when they get into power, the guys use the same power to crush you and put you back in your place? Y'all think, man. Think. It's as it is alleged. The PPP set up a whole gang of them with jailbreak and this and that and the other it is alleged, to assassinate the opposition leader at the time and so on, and they turned crossfire the backside. But at the end of the day, the PPP did what? Murder all of them. Ask the Bacchus family. Ask Shafiq Bacchus. I think Shafiq was his name. There are videos, as a matter of fact, out there with Shafiq or whoever his name saying, I used to work for Gadraj. I got Gadraj when they killed me body. I used to snitch. I used to pick up information. It was the man who used to bring and carry. And what happened? They turned around and murder his body. Ask Minister of Agriculture, Saturday Yosa. So are our people so daft, so shallow-minded, so desperate to allow people to criminalize them for their own gains, and then when they get the authority and get the power, crush them based on that same criminality? Well, as I usually say, if this is how you want to take it, so Take it so. I pray to God that me and my seed will not face those consequences because we are making different choices. It's 7 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour. It's not my morning. It's Vincent Jordan one. Okay, Mr. Jordan, let's get the ball rolling. But I've said my bit for this morning. They're going to watch me in the village. They're going to cuss me. I don't care. Because what happened? Unlike a lot of them, I have sacrificed to this village and I continue to sacrifice to this village. And not only this village, but the African Guyanese community. They say, well, hot air does make nose run water. But some of our people are so selfish. All they see is self. All they see is freaking self. And in all the grabbing, they ain't getting no place. They ain't even got peace of mind. I rather peace of mind than material things. Mr. Jordan, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the program, sir. How are you doing?
I'm good, you know. I'm back in the land. I went and cooled my head a little bit. De-stressed, as they say. But, you know, as soon as the plane left back coming to Guyana, it's like all the stressing that you pull out, you know, goes right back into the balloon and it's pumped up back again. But I'd rather be in Guyana than outside, you know. Could deal with Guyana. Outside got its own stresses and so on. That's why I said kudos to the diaspora, that they have been able to navigate around all the stresses and the daily complaints that they go through. And most of the time come out with a smile, you know. I just want to recognize all those who came to meet me or I met at a function or two. And most of all, I want to say a quick shout out to my former secretary, who I don't know whether she heard the program last week or my pleas for assistance, reached out. And I reached out in a tangible way. And I'm much the better for our assistance. And of course, another contributor to your program and listener, ardent listener to your program, who reached out also, and she shall be nameless because she's a very private person, but I want to thank her from the bottom of my heart. And that the results are slow, but at least I'm not in as much pain as I was when I was going out and even when I was coming back in. I'm hoping that this is a good portent and that I can get rid of this problem at the moment. So it was a good being out there. It was a good memorial day, of course, as I said, in the backyard and listening to people. I'm always amazed at the number of people who come up and say, Mr. Jordan, I'm happy to see you the first time. I'm glad to see you in the flesh. Mr. Jordan, I know you're from the Kodaki program in the morning. Keep doing what you're doing, and we are with you, and so on. And you know, I always leave a something. Well, you know, like remember the cash app or remember to send something. I could carry it, and so on. Unfortunately, I don't have anything. They didn't give me anything to bring. But other than their love and support, I could understand. You know, with the horrendous taxes that have been put on various goods and so on. I myself found it difficult doing some shopping, not for me, because I don't want any more clothes and all this kind of thing, but for my grandson, who seems to be growing it out as fast as you buy them. And it was, prices are very horrendous. As I said, I've been going to the States since 1982, so I have a good basis for making the comparison. And this was the first time I complained about prices and the inability to shop. And the variety, of course, also was not there. Obviously, a large number of items came from China and so on, and because of the difficulties there and so forth, maybe people not getting stocks or they're not restocking and so on. And so what is left there, the variety is not there, and the prices aren't competitive as such. But it was a good occasion to ground with the brothers and the sisters and so on. I always look forward to those occasions. I listened to your introduction this morning, and I also saw the video, and around about 3:30 or 4 o'clock this morning, I was commenting on it. And I did mention exactly like you that, every time I listen to comrades like the comrade and so on, I'm not going to knock him. I mean, it is his viewpoint, and he's seeing it from his lens. And we are to look at his lens and see how he's seeing it, whether it's skewed, whether it's blurred or whatever. I think we need to look at it from that standpoint. And I looked at it and I said that in my response to the post, I said, I could empathize with the sentiments, some of the sentiments that he's making. I empathize from the standpoint, one, that again, as I maintain, our PR was terrible. Right? You mentioned the raid project. I will be blunt with you. It's only myself and yourself who continuously mention the raid project. This was a signature project of the coalition government, a signature project, rural agricultural infrastructure development project, a signature project that targeted 4 African villages. 4 African villages, Moko, Buxton, BV Triumph, and Itiko, in which we sought to open the backlands by clearing the canals, creating cooperatives, giving people control of their produce and so on by forming the cooperatives, giving them equipment, lodging the equipment with them and so on, tools, and so forth, and also creating forward linkages to marketing and so on. Excellent program. I was moved to write a letter to Kaito News when somebody named Peeping Tom tried to give the impression that nobody ain't say anything when we go and take money to do 4 black villages. And I had to let them know they could not respond. You see, when you know your history, nobody can fool you and dumb you down. That raid project was raid 2, not raid 1, raid 2. Because under the Ramatar administration, they had taken raid 1 that targeted 4 Indian villages, including Unvawak, Ruby, Parika. I can't remember the 4th one at this time, but it was on the West Demerara also. 4 Indian villages. And when we came to power in 2015, the donors wanted to do a raid 2 as an extension of raid 1. I said, we will never have that. We will never have it. I said, we came in as a government of national unity. And whatever little we have, we will spread it around. And that's how we ended up with 4 black villages. Buxton. I say kudos to you, Kodaki, because it's only you and myself. Only you and I who let people know about the raid project. That it didn't pan out is a combination of several things. One, when the PPP came in, recognizing that the success that project was having, they scrapped it. They abandoned it. They took away the tractors and so on that we left with those people, and the co-ops took it away. And I guess the people became despondent, dispirited, and once again abandoned their backlands. Secondly, the RDC, under the rudderless, visionless leadership of C. Ram and Sandy, did nothing for those people in terms of stepping in to fill the vacuum that was created by the government in their abandoning the project. They did nothing for those communities. This is not telling tales out to school. That for 5 years they did nothing for those communities. So I understand the sentiments of the guy. And of course, thirdly, the coalition government itself. We have fairly large public works budgets and local government budgets. And I think it's one of the negatives that you perhaps also were saying and brought out, where we didn't focus those budgets more on our core constituencies instead of tripsing all over the country, which was consistent with our national unity perspective. But we ended up spending way more in communities that gave us way less. And for that, I think we have to go to our communities, our core constituencies, and do mea culpa, and to reassure them that we haven't abandoned the question of national unity and so on, but we will be more focused. We'll be more focused and more guided in terms of how we put together our budgets and how we meet their needs and so on. I think we need that. And I think it's a valid criticism of President Granger and many others, particularly the party folks, that we did not go to those communities and explain the departure of the government, what took place, and how we would be building back strong and so on. We didn't do that. And for that, you must again accept. We cannot continue to give people the impression that we only come to see them during election time. Okay, and I continue to say we because I was part of that government. Okay, I'm not active anymore, but I still see myself as part of the arrangement to get the coalition back into power, even if it's only from behind the scenes. So I can see the sentiments of the guy. He might be wrong-headed in many respects, and he might be doing the same thing of jumping out of the frying pan into the fire and so on. But it's for the politicians who hoping to get power to go and convince many like him, because it's not only him, many like him, why the road that he's going down is not necessarily the right road, and the road that the path that you are trying to put to him is the one that you want to reassure him will bring him greater and better. So that is what I will say by way of opening. You know, somebody texted me all this morning and said, can I, if I can find out when Parliament is going to be prorogued, because they don't want to buy the ticket and hear that the date was just the date of September the 4th wasn't a real date. I remembered Paul Slow on his program saying that for September the 1 date, Parliament had to be not prorogued, dissolved by June the 4th or the 2nd. June the 4th was a Sunday, June the 2nd a Monday. Well, today is June the 5th, and I really don't know what is going on. To be quite honest, I remember Stuart Young, former Prime Minister of Trinidad, when he was announcing the dissolution of, when he was announcing an election date, he also announced the dissolution of Parliament, right? Or the date when Parliament will be dissolved. Here in Guyana, it's like camera tricks we're playing. It's like 3-card tricks we're playing. Nobody knows when the Parliament is going to be dissolved. In fact, since May the 26th, when the announcement of September the 4th was made, they've actually had 2 sittings of Parliament, which outside the framework of the budget might be a record for this 12th Parliament, because during the budget, the Parliament meets continuously, right, to get the budget in place. but thereafterwards it goes to sleep. To have two sittings of parliament in the space, two lengthy sittings of parliament in the space of a week is somewhat of a record for this parliament. And what is even more worrying for me as to when this dissolution of parliament is going to come is because in the last parliament, I think it was last week, Friday, when Honorable Member Annette Ferguson was hoping to hear or to be given answers to questions, two key questions that she asked on the carbon credits. Two critical questions, more than two, it's two broad questions with sub-questions in them. The speaker entertained a deferral by the Minister responsible for Finance and the Public Service. Now, when is he deferring to? He obviously knows something that none of us knows, that there is going to be another parliament sitting. Because he could only defer to another sitting of parliament. So when...
Mr. Jordan, I have a close friend who works at the National Assembly there. And having a conversation with him, he told me that he can have as much, I think, about another 10 sittings of parliament before dissolution.
So when is the last date for the dissolution?
I'm trying to remember that date. I will try and get a message to him for him to tell me that date. But he said there is possibility for another 10 sittings before that dissolution becomes necessary.
Well, you know, it is a shame because very often when people announce a date for election, they announce 2 or 3 critical dates so that people could set their clocks and set their business diaries and so on. This person wants to come home to do some transactions and also to vote, right? Also, as you well know, September the 4th is Labor Day in the United States, when a large number of West Indians gravitate to Brooklyn, New York, to have a great day. So some people are willing to sacrifice Labor Day in Brooklyn for election day in Guyana, but they're not sure whether this date was just a mama guy or whether it's a real date. Because remember, a date can be announced, but unless the processes are the statutory processes are announced leading up to that and are executed, then that date could become a moving target. And I don't put anything beyond this particular PPP government. You know, they're not known for following rules and regulations and all these kinds of things. They have to follow a rule in relation to when the election can be held. But there's an outside date for elections way down in November. So I don't know why when you announce September the 4th that you could not announce that Parliament will be dissolved. In keeping with this date, Parliament will be dissolved by X date. So now you were saying that there could be possibly 10 more sittings before Parliament is dissolved. Meanwhile, people are out there waiting to hear when Parliament dissolves, so they know that the elections will be held on that particular date, and so they can buy their tickets and so on. Already ticket prices have gone up tremendously in recognition of the summer. That's one. And then, of course, coming to Ghana, knowing the election is going to be around that time or something, prices have risen sharply. So I know he may be listening, or he will go back and listen to this program, but I am waiting to hear when.
Pardon my interruption again. I just Googled it, and it says Parliament should be dissolved at least 31 days. So imagine that. 31 days. So you have, they can go right into August, let me say July month end before dissolving Parliament. Because according to the information I found, at least 31 days. It doesn't have to be more.
Good. So at least 31 days. But again, as it said, unless the government indicates that Parliament will be dissolved by X date, I think people are going to be hesitant. In fact, I'm saying where other people are saying they are hesitant to buy tickets because they haven't seen any moves to dissolve the Parliament, which means that the election will be on will be on, will well and truly be on, right? And they're saying essentially that they're not buying any ticket until they know the parliament has dissolved. Because once parliament dissolved, it can't come back. It can't come back into session unless an emergency takes place. So a lot of people are hanging out there, hoping and waiting. I can't advise them beyond that, but this is good advice that you have given. It's no later than 31 days before the actual date, which will carry it we'll probably carry it to end of July, based on what you have indicated, that they can keep Parliament open, which is sad, because in the past we have had elections announced, election date announced, and we have had these critical steps, the dissolution of the proclamation to dissolve Parliament and all these critical steps had been put in place. I mean, when President Granger announced the date of March 2nd for the 2020 elections, at the same time he announced the dissolution of Parliament. I think it was the end of December, 30th of December or something like that. So that will be effectively 2 months in advance of the date. So I'm not sure what is happening here, whether it wasn't well thought out, or whether it just came up or try to spring something on somebody. But that is the most I would say, and maybe the lawyers who listen to your program and so on, they may have this say. But I hope our people who listen to this program will have their say, because I'm sure they are thinking about whether to come or not to come and so on. But the later you tend to buy a ticket, is more you in doubt of getting a seat, or is more you decide you don't come because the prices by that time will be too much for people. They may as well buy a house instead of traveling to Guyana. Yes. So that is that. I think those who would have joined this program ostensibly to hear maybe my views on all these hop, skip, and jump, broad jump, and high jump, I think they will be disappointed, because I've been making those comments before. I would just advise them to listen, or to go and listen to read broadcast of David Hines' program last night, which I'm sure can be found on YouTube or so on, in which he did critically and clinically with this whole issue. All I would say at this stage is that in relation to the latest hop, skip, and jump, which will be Ms. Chandan, that is not a surprise. It was expected, and it came to the fore during the budget time. What I'm concerned about, if this is a new trend, because I don't recall ever in the history of Parliament itself that anybody, any parliamentarian, would have used the floor of Parliament to indicate their disaffection, really, with their current party and their endorsement of another party's candidate in an upcoming election. I don't know whether this has ever been done before. People liken this kind of behavior to Charan Das's no confidence, but I think there's a distinct difference. Charan Das used the Constitution, and he could have only made a no confidence motion in the Parliament. He couldn't make a no confidence motion to the government outside the Parliament. I mean, his whole action was reprehensible and so on. It doesn't take away from that. That was reprehensible in its own right. But what I'm saying is only saved by the fact that he had to make it in Parliament. He couldn't make it outside the Parliament. I asked myself, what did the coalition in general and the PNCR in particular do to Ms. Chandan, that she had to stick a dagger in the hearts of the PNC are to get up in Parliament while she still maintained the position as a member of Parliament of the coalition government nominated by the APNU, to say that she endorsing another candidate. Nobody, remember, nobody's not saying that she can't endorse whoever she wishes. That's all right. That's all right. But you're telling me a seat that you never won in a force past the post, but was gifted to you by largely African Guyanese voters, that you will sit down, you don't resign, you don't resign from the party, you don't resign as a member of parliament, and then subsequently said, I will be supporting X candidate in the upcoming election. No, you maintain your right as a member of parliament. You go in the parliament, you defy the chief whip for the coalition, Mr. Christopher Jones, and you get an accommodative speaker that allowed you to say and plunge that knife into the hearts of the PNC and the PNC supporters and all the 218,000 plus people who voted for the coalition in 2020. That is the part that really upset me. Not the fact that she's going. Her going and whoever else, I liken in another thread to, as a Boy Scout, I learned to underbush. That is the clearing of the leaves, the dead leaves and the shrubs and the roots and the barks and the stems and plants, right? Parasites that are sucking the nutrients and therefore not allowing the real productive plants to grow. So you can do underbushing by two methods. You have the natural method of underbushing, where those very things that I called just now, the roots and the stems and the shrubs and so on, they die naturally and they form compost for the productive and thriving plants, right? So they serve a purpose, but their whole decaying and decomposition may take too long. And by that time, the thriving plants may die. And there's the more well-known and accepted method of the visible hand, where you go there and you use your cutlass and you use your rake and your spade and a shovel and whatever else to clear away the bush. It's called underbushing. Clearing away all these dead woods and suckers and parasites and so on from the plants to allow the natural productive plants to grow. So I see all of this skip and jump as in my Boy Scout days what we used to call underbushing. Okay? I saw Aubrey making a comment to Sabric News in today's papers, in which he says it's no problem because they're not carrying anybody with them, right? And to the best of my knowledge, I don't know that these people who are going had a constituency. When they got a constituency and they go, then you might be worried. So in that comment, I believe it's quite correct.
Yeah, but we have to look at the optics too, What the young people are seeing and believing is far from the reality, but the optics are important.
Yes, but as he said, and I agree too, you can't dismiss the fact that they're optics and so on. But you have to also be aware of these side shows, right? You can't allow the distractions, and you redouble your efforts in terms of getting your program out. That is what these side shows is all about. They're about burying your program. Because like you say, if you say Vibes Cartel come in, then everything is about Vibes Cartel. And if you tell them, listen, I got a program where I'm going to give you $200,000 in wages as opposed to $60,000 in the private sector, they don't get that. That gets buried. So it's up to having said what he said, it is up to Aubrey as the opposition leader and as the leader of his party to notwithstanding you say that let them go and so on, on the bushing and so on, you need to also show where the new plants are flowering. You have to show that. And for that, you need some level of unity. All the disparate other people who are out there and you know, because Aubrey has to know out there is deemed to be a non-uniting factor. Whether it's true or not is not my, is nothing, but he has to be aware of that and he has to conquer that. He has to conquer that, you know. All parties are made up of all kinds of different people. But ultimately, you have to have a strategy to pull in all of those disparate forces into one uniting force. Okay? Ultimately, you're not be able to do all, and then you have to make a leeway for 5 or 10% who will go. That's not a problem. So you what is left now, you build around what is left. And that is his issue. And you can't continue again with this debate PR, because he said in that interview with Starbuck News, oh, they have been campaigning all along and so on. That might be so the diehards might know you're campaigning, but what about the wider set of community? Have they know that you're campaigning? You know, what about the message? Are they receiving your message? Is your message consistent? Are all the people who've been campaigning you, are they carrying the same message and so on? You have to have all that. You have to, and he has to know, notwithstanding your public bravado and so on, that you are in a fight for your life. But I believe that the PNC is a green heart. It's an oak tree. And yes, you may have the elephants come and you shake it, but elephants know they can't knock down oak tree. You could knock down sapodilla tree and so on, but oak tree is a little tough. Green heart tree gonna be a little tough, notwithstanding their strength and so on. And it withstand. It will withstand. The green heart tree of the PNC will withstand. And it's not going to be for the first time that the PNC has had people who have left the party and so on. Not for the first time. I trying to recall any real high profile persons who have left the PNC and gone over to the PPP. I know high profile people came from the PPP into the PNC during Bonham's time, especially in the 70s when things were rough. Chandy Pauls, the Ticos, Vincent Ticos, the head of the PYO at that time, who is now ambassador in Cuba. You know, not all of them that came, but I'm still trying to figure out a high profile. And y'all, please don't tell me Van West Charles. You know, I don't know that Van West Charles is a high profile in the name, in the same way as the Chandy Singhs and the Ticos and so on. I'm still trying to figure out a high profile part. People have left, the Jeffries and the Lubombos and so on. They left and they went to the to the PPP, but they were never high profile members of the PNC. They were in the party, and I don't even know whether some of them were actually PNC. They were in the party, but I don't know whether they were actually PNC. But as I said, the PNC as an institution will survive. It has to take Dr. Reid. I'll never forget Dr. Reid's advice: to build you must destroy. Right? Not in the destructive sense that we may know, but I think we get the idea. Right? To regenerate and grow, you have to do the underbushing. And if this is the method of the underbushing, where people voluntarily go over, that's no problem. That's no problem. What you have to do with what is left now, you have to strengthen what is left and grow it from there. Because in this moneyed economy of us, money, and I always tell people about money illusion, money is going to be a difficult thing for people to close their eyes. Money is going to be difficult. You can't appeal only to patriotism and so on, right? People are going to say, fine, but I can't eat patriotism. So we're going to have to find creative ways and strategies of how to keep people active even while they pursue that very dollar that they need to survive. So that is what I'm not gonna say. I'm gonna leave that for my people like Dr. Hines and them now to say much more. All I would say is that on the PR front, we can't wait too late. Only a couple days I would say is left. On the PR front, I believe that the opposition, whether they be PNC, APNU, AFC, and so on, they better come together collectively, and even if they're not going into election collectively, they better come together collectively to have a strategy to counter the PPP. Otherwise, we're in for another 5 more years, and God knows how many more. And for many of us, we're not 20, we're not 18, and we're not 25, not even 30. We are in our late 60s. We're in our late 60s, and we can't afford another round of the PPP in power. Not after the last 5 years and what we had to go through, essentially. And this is what the entire opposition, whether you're collectively or singly, have to be the message. And people have to get that message very early. Because as you could see already, money, the love of money, which is the root of all evil, people say, then let me be evil because I'm going after the money, right? And even those who should know better, they're not knowing better once money is in front, right? And those who you would have thought by now would have gone through many cycles, would have earned, would have been able to pass on knowledge and so on, they too are in the quest for money and largesse and porks and so on. So it's a difficult election coming up, but we can stay the course if we remain focused. That's all I would say on that one. I was reading something this morning that was sent to me. On to Forbes, I think it's the magazine of June 2nd, 2025. Under the headline, 6 rums were awarded gold outstanding medals at the 2025 International Wine and Spirits Competition. Would you believe none of these rums comes from Guyana? In fact, the 6 rums, according to this article, are 1, some rum named Wardy Park 109 from Jamaica. 2, Clement Rum, 15-year-old from Martinique. 3, Equidem, 14-year-old from Barbados. 4, FNQ Palladium rum from Australia. 5, Moneymus Special Reserve 10-year rum from Jamaica. And 6, 9-to-1 red sugarcane rum from Taiwan. So my good friend from DDL, Komal Samaru, former schoolmate. What happened to Eldorado rums? Particularly the 15-year-old, I believe, the 21-year-old and so on that had been winning gold medals in the previous years. What has happened to it? And I hope he will make a comment on the absence of at least Eldorado rum from this, making the 6. From a rum that was toasted at the best in the world for many years to now not being able to make the 6. What exactly has happened? Komal, over to you. Banks ZIH, you also make rum. But I don't know that you have been featured in this international thing. I know you may have won a gold medal here and there in other competition, but you also. I mean, what happened to the whole context that Guyana was a rum country, known for its finest rums and so on? I'm not a rum drinker, but, I mean, for a country that has been known for fine rums and so on to not be included in this 6 was a bit hard reading this morning, you know. And while kudos go out to rums from Jamaica, Barbados, in the context of the CARICOM, and Martinique in the context of the Caribbean, what has happened to a known rum producing country like Guyana? Kedaki, you know? Are people still drinking rums? Are you hearing what anybody is saying about rums from Guyana? I know I get an early response from somebody from Barbados who's suggesting issues to do with quality and taste and so on. But I'd rather hear it from a rum export like Komal as exactly why. It could be that we didn't enter any rums in the competition. It could be. But let me don't speculate until I hear from Komal exactly why we don't have any rums in the top 6, especially at a time when we used to have such rums before, especially Eldorado rums. I noticed that every time come around to elections, especially the last election, we always have some article coming out to some international body that either makes, not necessarily makes or break the election outcome or so on. But it's the timing of such articles that are more than just passing interest. If you recall, a couple days, you may say, before the 2020 election, some environmental body or something of the sort or came out with an article where they said that the Granger administration had given away, in terms of the contract, the oil contract, billions of US dollars. Some witness or something like that, I think it was the name of the, if you all remember, you could shout on the thread how much billions we had given away. And it had given the impression that we had sold out and so on. And our folks locally took it up, particularly now government would, then the opposition would took it up and ran with it. And notwithstanding reports from Clyde and company out of England and so on that showed that that wasn't true, the timing of that report was meant to sink the coalition government. And it had an impact in terms of the installation of the present government. Because you know why? Soon after the election results were, the 2020 election results were announced, the very group came out and said it was a false report. Not unlike what happened to Hillary Clinton when the FBI produced a report and its timing that literally caused Hillary to lose that election. And afterwards coming out and denying the report in the sense that it wasn't true. Same thing happened to the coalition government. Soon after the results came up. I say that because it was on May the 22nd, just last month, you had published in some magazine or book called Nature World an article by one Hetty Wilmot, that said, out of 186 countries, only Guyana produces enough food to self-sufficiently feed all its citizens without foreign imports. Only out of 186 countries, only Guyana produces enough food to self-sufficiently feed all its citizens without foreign imports. Well, when I read it, I was taken aback. I'm not going to be dealing with that today. I'm going to deal with it another time. I'm just bringing it up to introduce to another article that I will deal with more substantively. Yes, when I read it, I was taken aback. Only Guyana? In the first place, who are these people? Have they been to Guyana recently or over the last 2 years or 3 years? Have they heard about 25 by 25, which is now 25 by 30 or 20 by 30 and all this kind of story? Have they heard about poverty in Guyana? Have they heard about nutrition status in Guyana? These are facts. Go and check the budget speech and look at the nutritional status and all this kind of story. So I asked myself, have they looked at the food import bill over the last 4 or 5 years? What is it that these people are talking about? So I suspected that the government might have been embarrassed. So you didn't see on their favorite channels and TVs and radios and so on any playing up of this article, because you know they would have been quick to run with it and play it up and use it as a manifesto headline and so on. But they didn't. They themselves might have been embarrassed with this article, so they didn't play it up. But where do these people get these things from? And you want to know the timing again. The timing, May 22nd. This came out May 22nd, May 26th. You get announcement that elections is September the 4th. The timing, again, as to whether these narratives are now building up to support a certain outcome again of these elections. All right? And what am I building up to? I'm building up to another narrative. Another narrative that came out, I believe, only last week. Only last week. And it says that, and it comes from ECLAC. ECLAC. According to ECLAC, right, which I think was in sometime last week it was produced, or at latest the week before. Guyana has the lowest tax to GDP ratio in I would imagine, if not the entire world, certainly the entire Western Hemisphere. According to ECLAC, tax revenues as a share of GDP in Guyana fell to 11.6%. 11.6% of GDP, compared to 32% in Brazil, 33% in the OECD countries, in UK and Belgium and Italy and Germany and all them, and 21.3% in the Latin American and Caribbean region, of which Guyana is a part of that region. So while the average is 21.3% in the Latin American Caribbean region, for Guyana, it's 11.6%, right? Just about 50% thereabout of the average for the entire Latin American Caribbean region. Now, at first blush, this appears to be a feel-good metric. 11 point tax to GDP, 11.6%. It gives the impression, Guyana is like a tax haven, and it collects very little taxes and so on. All right, but there are a number of realities about this, and for those who like reading and so on, analysis of this was done by well-known statistician Ramesh Gampat in a letter in yesterday's papers, and they can in yesterday's Stabrook News, and they can go and read that letter for all the final details of the analysis and so forth. I will do a bit of it, not of his, but a bit of mine, right? But let us understand clearly what is happening here. The bigger the denominator, the smaller the ratio. Okay? So tax to GDP, all that means is that you take tax revenues of the government and you divide it by the gross domestic product and you get your tax to GDP ratio. So you can see if the numerator, the tax, which is the tax revenue, is expanding considerably slower than the denominator, which is the gross domestic product, then you're going to have a falling ratio. Okay? Now, people say they love my teaching, and I try to explain things, and things that I might be esoteric and arcane and so on. They understand when I teach it. So let me say it to you. If the tax revenue, let us say, it's expanding by 2%, but the gross domestic product, the denominator, is expanding by, say, 10, 15, 20%, then the ratio or the result of that fraction is going to be smaller and smaller and smaller. That is what has been taking place in Guyana. And why is that so? It is so because, like the World Bank, the IMF, ECLAC, and all the other institutions, they are failing to take the reality of Guyana. Yes, Guyana GDP has been growing by 46%, 36%, 63%, and all these kind of things. But that is only because of oil production. And we unlike Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and all these places that own the oil, we do not own our oil. Certainly not 100%. All we can consider in terms of our oil is a mere 14.5%. 2% royalty, 12.5% profit share. 14.5%. So that's all we can think about. But the bulk of that production is owned by Exxon and so on and shipped out. So this is a false premise. Okay? This is a false premise. But this is the metric that has been used throughout. And it has, as I said, it has deleterious consequences for Guyana. All right? Because it paints that rosy picture and it allows the government to paint that rosy picture about the economy. But those who know it, those who live here, those who feel it, those who experience it, those who can talk about the over 2 years of what the people say in the Starbuck News, they will tell you a different picture. They will tell you a different picture. Per capita income in Guyana, using oil, Guyana has gone through the stratosphere. Now we're second only to Trinidad. Per capita income in Guyana now is US 20-something thousand. 20-something thousand US dollars per person. That works out to like about $4.5 million. How many people in Guyana earn $4.5 million per annum? Ask yourself, how many? And remember, per capita includes all the babies, the just born, the babies, the old people who can't work, the people on pension, the working thing. That's what per capita income means. Your income, your gross domestic product, divided by your total population. How many people in Guyana earn an annual income of $4.5 million? Not the private sector where the minimum wage is $60,000. That will only give you 720. Not the public sector where the minimum wage is just about 100,000. That will give you 1.2 million. To earn 4.5 million, it means you are roughly getting about $340,000 per month, roughly. About how many people earn $340,000 per month? Not even our doctors, not our superintendents of police, not our assistant commissioners, maybe. Maybe they earn a bit more than that. But you see what I'm talking about? Look at the level to which you got to go to find people who earn $340,000. So this is a misplaced metric of 11.6% because they are using an inflated gross domestic product that has been inflated by oil production, the bulk of which belongs to somebody else. When the correct or the better denominator will be what is called non-oil production. When we extract the non-oil production from the overall GDP. And when you do that, you will find that, for example, well, let me show you essentially what the ratios for tax revenue to GDP when it has in oil. In 2018, that ratio was 20%. 20%. Now, the average that you should aim for is around that 20-21% that you should normally aim for of your GDP, your tax revenue to GDP ratio. Should be somewhere in the region of 20-21%. All right? Fairly. So let's go over again. In 2018, the tax ratio that included oil was 20%. And the non-oil was 20.3%. Close, almost identical. That's because in 2018, we didn't have oil production. Oil production started in 2019. Right? December forced oil was 2019. In 2019, the tax ratio that included oil was 21.6%. 21.6%. And the non-oil was 22.1%. Again, close. Again, close because remember in 2019, as I just said, the forced oil was in December of 2019. So your GDP would not have gotten that oil production. Yeah. In 2020, though, the tax ratio had declined substantially from 21.6% to 14.6% when it included oil. But in 2020, the tax ratio to non-oil GDP had risen to 23%. Remember, it came from 20.3% in 2018 to 22.1% in 2019, and now 23% in 2020. Okay? So in 2020, the tax ratio that includes oil is 14.6%. But without oil, it's 23%. Okay? So you could see the non-oil tax ratio is rising. Why? You are collecting more revenues, right? So let me explain this to you carefully. You're collecting more revenues, right? However, the GDP, when it includes oil, is increasing dramatically. Remember, in 2020, GDP increased by about 40-something%, or I think it's like 30-something% or 40-something%. But your revenues would have increased maybe by single digits. Okay, and so you have that collapse tax revenue to oil GDP of 14.6%. However, the same revenues put on a substantially smaller non-oil GDP will result in an increase in the ratio, and that is why you got 23%. When you go to 2021 now, a further fall in the tax ratio that includes oil in the oil GDP to 14.2%. But there's another rise in the tax ratio when you include non-oil of 25.7%. In 2022, a dramatic fall in the tax ratio that includes oil, and includes the GDP of oil of 9.9%. But the GDP that is non-oil, the tax ratio is 26.4%. In 2023, a slight decline again in the tax ratio where the GDP includes oil. It's now 9.3%. But the GDP that is non-oil, the tax ratio rises to 29.5%. And in 2024, the tax ratio where the GDP has oil in it declines again sharply to 7.4%. But the tax ratio that does not include oil, that's the non-oil GDP, that tax ratio is now 30%. So there's a misleading picture with the ECLAC number, right? Misleading. I'm not saying the statistic is wrong because they use the GDP that includes oil, but it's misleading. It gives the impression that Guyana is broke or going to be insolvent soon with such a low tax GDP ratio. But when you look at the non-oil aspect of it, you see the tax ratio rising from 20.3% in 2018 to 30% in 2024, right? But there's another metric that we need to look at more closely, and that is the one that will indicate and will be cause for serious concern. And that is called tax buoyancy. Now, what is tax buoyancy? So tax buoyancy in the literature is defined as the ratio of change in tax revenue in relation to change in the gross domestic product. And it essentially measures how responsive a taxation policy is to the growth in economic activities. What does it all that means? So tax buoyancy is equal to the percentage change in the tax revenue divided by the percentage change in the GDP. Right? So a taxation policy with a tax buoyancy of over 1 or 1 and over will deliver more tax revenue following a positive change in gross domestic product. In other words, then what we're saying here is that we require like a 1-to-1 ratio to show that whatever changes in the tax policy or introduction of tax measures that you're introducing, when you look at the tax buoyancy, it comes out 1-to-1. In other words, then you're getting a fair share. As a result of the tax policy, you're getting a fair share out of the expansion in economic activities in the country. Right? If a tax buoyancy is 1 and over, it means your tax policy is responding positively to the growth in GDP. However, the lower the tax buoyancy, it is the poorer of the tax collection in response to economic growth. In other words, what we're saying here, that your tax policy, while it may be driving growth, it is not driving collection, or you're not collecting as much. And we'll come to that. Why I'm getting to this. Now let's look at our tax buoyancy. I did some rough calculation. I say rough calculations, right? When we look at oil, at the oil GDP, which is the one I want to look at, and not the non-oil, because the non-oil will be of little relevance to us now. Because the oil, you're supposed to, if the oil is growing the economy, then our tax base ought to be increasing, and increasing substantially, given the massive rise in the GDP. So, in terms of tax buoyancy, in 2019, tax buoyancy using an oil GDP was 2.6, 2019. So, remember 2019 was our time. And 2019, we didn't have oil production of any worth. I mean, the first one, as we said, was late 2019. So it wouldn't affect our GDP. So in other words, then our tax policy was quite buoyant at 2.6. And as you know, that allowed us to do the kind of expenditure, particularly improvement in wages and salaries and the conditions, especially in the education. Look at the statistics that we were able to return in education, in health, and so on. Look at the infrastructure that we were able to put in place. That is what a tax buoyancy ratio of 2.6 would allow you to do. In 2020, tax buoyancy was negative. Now, a major part of that would be just let me think this, because an important call coming in, and I'm going to get back to you.
All right, so Mr. Jordan had to take a break there because he has an important call to take. But it's 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock in Ghana. It is the 5th of June in the year 2025. And you're stay tuned to the Guyanese Morning Time. Big up yourself, those of you who are over at TikTok. I hope you are enjoying this course. I hope you're learning. And I do hope you're encouraging others to join so that they too can learn. You should be tapping for us, please and thank you. We need those taps, you know. And you can be gifting us also, you know. We need your support. Right. It's not my morning, so I really don't want to introduce anything new into this discourse. But the whole story is, you notice, is like Mr. Jordan is saying, at this time, leading up to elections, we have to be very careful of the information we pay attention to. Because journalism is about... oh, yes, sure.
Hello?
Yes, we're here. Yes, we're here. You can take over again.
Yeah. Right. Yes. So let me quickly go. Yes.
Morning, neighbor, morning. Are you morning? Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. I am your host, Kiraki Amsterdam. Oh, I need some lighting. My lighting is not the best right now. I'm going to get that sorted in a minute or two or three or four. But yeah, I'll just be a screen. This morning I'm experimenting further. TikTokers, if you can hear me loudly and clearly, and you are also seeing me, which I know that you are seeing me, then give me a thumbs up. I'm actually trying to use a desktop app this morning. Yeah, let me see what I look like on mobile. Nah, see nothing. Me nah see nothing. None at all, me nah see. Oh, there we are. Good. So I know that YouTubers, TikTokers are seeing me. TikTokers, welcome to the program. Facebook and tubers, YouTubers, welcome to the program. It's a Friday. It's another Friday. Welcome to Guyanese Morning Time. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. I'm not late. All right, so TikTok is telling me that my live is restricted because it's directing people off of my platform, off of the TikTok platform, and so on and so forth, which I'm not really doing, you know. But I them think so they can decide what they want to do with it. But in the meantime, just now. I'm appealing that decision. You gotta bear with me, you know. Because I said, bro. So I got certain things set up. Yes, everybody wants to control somebody. And like I usually say, there's no free lunch. And so even if you say that things like TikTok and so on, they're free platforms, they're not actually free platforms. They have their own restrictions and they have their own rules that you have to follow and so on and so forth. But I like, you know, I said the thing set up, so it'll go. Yes, so it's Free Talk Friday. Lots of things for us to talk about. And I am hoping that we get to talk a lot of things. I'm not happy with what I'm seeing, really. Anyhow, TikTokers, let's see if we can survive with this for today. Because like I said, I am trying to see how best we can utilize all the platforms that I can use. Right? Everything comes with its own challenges. I'm acknowledging that there's one this morning. Yeah, I think this is a little better. Y'all don't beat me up, man. Y'all bear with me. You know, everything I do, I try to do the best for us. Right? The best I try to do for us. So, yeah, just bear with Mr. Amsterdam. All right, good. So it seems as though I'm better set there. TikTokers, you can hear me. I'm sure you can hear me. I'm seeing all the indications that you're hearing me. I hope it is in real time and so on and so forth. Yeah, so Free Talk Friday. Yesterday, Mr. Jordan was saying, by the way, how are you today? How was it yesterday? How was your last night? What happened for you yesterday? I see a lot of things happen to a lot of people, right? There are at least 4 Guyanese who have been sanctioned by the U.S. government. As a matter of fact, OFAC, I think they call him, Office of Foreign Assets, or something to that extent. OFAC has sanctioned at least 4 Guyanese, identified them as drug dealers, drug smugglers, and so on and so forth. There are 2 Colombians included in that group. All right. So they tell me, all right, I can deal with it later. We got time for that. The two Colombians included in that group. We're going to talk more about that because it is an issue I raised earlier in the week in our discourses when I said that once the PPP came to power around 92, Guyana was never the same. I remember that. And so we're talking this morning about that and all kinds of things. The lines are going to be opened up in another 30 minutes or so. Once I'm finished making these quick statements, I try to give you, the viewers, the say on Friday mornings. But so, yesterday in his discourse, Mr. Jordan was saying he noticed this publication about Guyana being maybe the only country in the world that can, or that produces all the food it needs to feed its people. And he was saying about by such a publication because my conclusion, if you look around the world or if you look around the country, there's still people who are starving in this country. There's still people who are going hungry in this country. The citizens in this country, for the greater part, live on the poverty line and below the poverty line. Most of them live off less than $5 in US, $5.50 per day. That is 1,100 Guyana dollars a day. Many people live off that and less. And that is what is defined as poverty, according to the United Nations and so on and so forth. So the caution, be careful of what you read and believe. Because the reality is it's an electoral season. And the government of the day has a lot of money to pay influencers, to pay lobbyists, to get favorable publications. And the media of today, if you ask me, is up for sale and has been sold in a big way according to Trump. I don't know if you are aware of the company called Analytica, right? I just had the right name in my head, but it is Analytica. What Analytica? But Analytica, while the PPP was in opposition in 2020, as a matter of fact, before 2020, my understanding is that they tried to use Analytica in the leading up to the 2015 election, but things didn't go as planned. Things fell through because maybe they weren't coming up fast enough with the money or whatever the facts was. But the reality is they did not get to use Analytica into the 2015 elections, at least not to benefit them the way they wanted. But they continue that effort to use Analytica into the 2020 elections. As opposition, they engage with these lobbying companies. I think Analytica was the one that they used, or an alternative to Analytica in the 2020 election. What these companies do, number one, they do lobbying. So the government has enough money to pay them to lobby Washington and lobby United Nations and lobby all across the world to get the international players and international heavyweights and strong-armed people to get on the side of the PPP. And as we see the results of the 2020 elections, they succeeded in regime change in 2020, right? Because of a combination of efforts. The intervention of the US government, the US Secretary of State, was it Pompeo at the time? Yes, Pompeo at the time, along with these lobbyist forms and so on. Companies like Analytica make a study of your population, and then they come up with a strategy for influencing your population and influencing the vote and influencing the outcome of the election. Some of it has to do with negative press on the government or negative press on the people they don't want to get into government. And on the other hand, positive press for the people that they want to get into government. And so in 2020, like Winston Jordan highlighted yesterday again, there were some particularly nasty, disgusting, negative articles against the coalition leading up to the elections. And immediately after the elections, those articles were pulled by this international agency that said, no, we weren't accurate. The data on which this report was created was flawed. So again, in 2025 now, we're seeing this positive press. We're seeing positive press to suggest that the PPP has it all laid out and well and proper to benefit Guyanese. To say, for example, the story about the lowest tax ratio, tax to income ratio, the story about Guyana being able to feed itself and stuff. Those are positive press that they would see it. The citizens would be happy with such reporting. But if you pay attention to the reality on the ground, you will realize this is influence being bought. Right? This is influence being bought. And so we have to pay careful attention to the kind of information which we are fed and not be fooled. As they say, you're what you eat. And if you eat the wrong kind of information, and talking figuratively, you will end up being the wrong kind of person, make the wrong kind of decision. And that is what this government is about. They are about misinforming the populace so that poor decisions can be made. A lot of people focus on the vote, getting citizens to vote. Cambridge Analytica, thank you, Joel. And then Mercury, I think was the one that was used in 2020. Yes. A lot of people focus on getting citizens to vote in a particular way. And they think that is it. But a lot of us in the political realm understand that the other focus of people like those in power is if we can get them to vote for us, let us stop them from voting for the opposition. And how do you do that? That is something we call voter suppression. They put so much misinformation out there about the opponent that people become disgusted with the opponent. And since they're disgusted with the government and they're disgusted with the opponent, they come to the conclusion, listen, I'm not going to vote. I'm not voting. Who does it benefit? Low voter turnout benefits the incumbent. Low voter turnout benefits the person in government because they're already in government. And it's likely that they're going to buy votes, they're going to pay people to go out and vote. And so if there's low voter turnout, in most instances, it is the opposition parties that suffer from a low voter turnout. And so we have to look at that too. Because, take for example, this blame game that's happening. The coalition never do none for y'all. The PPP consistently like to say, we do more for black people in government than the coalition has ever done for them. The coalition ain't do nothing for y'all. And there are people who walk around and they spew that mantra, they talk about that all that. Coalition ain't do nothing for we. Granger used to come and go to the gas station by his friends up. Granger never come back and say thank you. Right? And stuff like that. We voting. The incumbent government, the PPP, is happy for conversations like those. The PPP is happy when citizens say we ain't voting. Because once you don't vote, you have voted for the PPP. If you don't vote against the PPP, you have voted for the PPP. Whether you went into that ballot polling station and you placed your vote or not, you have voted for the PPP. And we have to understand that. Don't be caught up in voter suppression. Every single citizen has a responsibility to go there and vote on E-Day, and every single citizen must take that responsibility seriously and go there and vote on E-Day. I would love you to vote for the APNU-WPA coalition. I would love you to vote for the opposition, because voting solidly for the opposition, especially voting solidly for the APNU-WPA coalition, is a sure way of getting a change in government than staying home. Don't do it. Do not do it. Even though you might be pissed with the last opposition government, as I'm calling it now, even though you might be pissed with the Granger administration, you think the Granger administration failed along the way, Aubrey Norton, David Hines, and many others who are part of the APNU-WPA coalition has never had the authority in government. Not as president, not as prime minister, not as vice president, not as minister. They've never had that authority in government. And I'm saying, give them that opportunity to prove to you that they can do different to David Granger. Give them the opportunity to prove to you that they can do different to David Granger. But it's the same thing we're saying. We want to give Mohammed the opportunity. Well, I'm saying to you that Aubrey Norton, David Hines, and many in the APNU-WPA coalition have never been accused of some of the things that Azruddin Mohammed has been accused of. They have never been sanctioned by the US for tax evasion. It has never been alleged that they have been party to criminal activities of varying sorts. It has never been alleged that they had guns in buildings where people were shot protesting for the right in this country. There were never any such allegations among the leadership of the APNU-WPA coalition. And so I'm saying, even if you want to weigh the two against each other, I believe that I will feel safer with an APNU-WPA coalition. The Mohammeds, a lot of our young black youths are saying, supporting Mohammed. Got the PNC fail, the PPP fail, the coalition fail, give Mohammed a chance. In all of the wickedness that the PPP was doing to African Guyanese in this country, the Mohammeds were involved. The Mohammeds were giving succor to the PPP. The Mohammeds were supporting the PPP. If you listen to Shell Mohammed, he has been a supporter of the PPP since I was a boy. He helped Jagan to get into power in 1992. He continued to support the PPP up until even after the last election, and he doesn't know where the fallout came from between the Mohammeds and the PPP. And those of you who remember, leading up to the last election and during the last election and immediately after the last election, it is the Mohammeds who were providing transportation and security for Irfan Ali and many others around the PPP. And again, coming out of the mouth, as they say, you heard it from the horse's mouth. You heard it from the Muhammad's. I think in this instance, it was Azar who said, listen, when the Jagyo and Ali and all of them from the PPP were afraid to go around this country, especially on the East Coast, it is we who provided security for them. It is we who were taking them around the country. Yeah, remember that? So understand this. The Mohammeds are not without blame for the state of this country under this PPP government. They've been an integral partner. It is alleged, as a matter of fact, I know I'm to the you know what I'm to the you know what I'm talking about, TikTok. Anyhow, something has disappeared from TikTok. My image has disappeared from TikTok. But I know talkers are hearing me. And if you're hearing me, talkers, very strange we're having this conversation. I will work on maybe installing a second camera that will be dedicated strictly to TikTok. Right. They have been a part of the problem. And if they have been a part of the problem, they can't come to you now and say, we have the solution for the problem, as if they were never part of the problem. They have been a part of the problem and they remain a part of the problem. So don't let people come to you and kerfuffle you and tell you, we with you and wait for you. And we don't agree with what they've done to you, because those very people were right there. And the people who are doing these things to you and continue to do these things to you were, and in many instances, remain their friends and cronies. It is alleged, I don't know, and that is why I'm saying it is alleged, that when the people at Moko, were being bulldozed from that piece of land at Cane View, I think Cane View is what they call it, Cane View or Caneville, or Cane View. It is alleged that the Mohammeds were major players in that operation there. It is alleged that the land was given to them, or some part of the land was given to them in exchange for a piece of land that they had given to the government to construct the new, or in the vicinity of the construction of the new Demerara Harbor Bridge. Did you at any time hear the Mohammeds come out and say, well, we don't agree with what the government is doing to these people? We stand with these people. And so don't be fooled about this grandstanding now, about having the interests of the people at heart and being philanthropic to the people and so on and so forth. If you didn't stand with us in our hard times, and you were enjoying yourself, when you're coming to stand with us during your difficult times, it suggests to me that your tears are crocodile tears. I cry with y'all because I myself got to cry now. I am crying with y'all because I myself am in a difficult position now. And so all of you man who talking about Mohammed for we and Mohammed, we know we're going to do good for us and all of that. I'm telling y'all, what's sweeter goat mouth does bitter eat backside. What's sweeter goat mouth does bitter eat backside. And if you all tell yourself this is no for now, it's not no for now. The decisions you make now will last you into another several generations and they're going to come back to haunt you. It is alleged that when Roger Khan and his gangs were marauding, masquerading all over this country, and slaughtering young African men in the name of the PPP. Among their intellectual authors were the Mohammeds. It is alleged. There was what I want to call a conglomerate of businessmen around the city and around the country who were pooling resources to fund the Phantom Squad and other killing squads in this country to hunt young black men like dogs and murder them in the street. Extrajudicially murder them, extrajudicially kill them. I don't care if they label them criminal or not. They are processes through which criminals should be passed. And so how somebody with all of these allegations of misconduct and misbehavior and supporting a wicked and vindictive government and so on could suddenly rise and be able to do the spotless, and our young black men, or young black women, or African people are running to them like the Savior Jesus Christ. You are falling, you are allowing yourselves to fall into a serious trap. A trap that you're going to live to regret. Was sweeter goat mouth and bitter your backside. If you tell yourself you're lining up, according to my young Buxtonian, to knock on every door to get the votes out for Mohammed, because you're going to be taken care of, think again. Because even if you're taken care of, your generations and your nation, the African nation, there's no guarantee that they will be taken care of. I got a video I want to show y'all because I say we want unity like this in this country. Let me find the video. We want unity like this in this country. It might look simplistic, but I want you to look at it for what it's worth. Because I certainly want unity like this among the African Guyanese, especially in this country. If I could get unity like this among African Guyanese in this country, I would celebrate every day of the year with y'all. Because this is real unity. And this is the kind of unity we got to work for, and the kind of unity we got to promote, and the kind of unity that we have to achieve as an African people, if it is we are going to see the backs of the PPP. Don't let people tell you otherwise. The Facebookers, TikTokers, you might not see this video, but it's a video of an African American coming under attack from a group of whites at a dock, and an African man swimming across the water to go to his rescue, and other African people running from all walks of life to go to his rescue. Unity like this is what we want.
Yeah! Woo! 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 They scared. Look at them. They scared. Woo! Beat their ass. Woo! Oh my God. Woo! That what you get. That what you get. That what you get. Oh, tie her ass up. Ooh, she whooping her ass. She finna put her in the water. In the water. Tie his ass up. Cause y'all were wrong. Uh-huh. 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 Do some. Uh-huh. Boop. Ah. Boop. Ah. Boop. 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 Ah. Boop. Ah. Boop. Ah. Woo. He ran. He jumped in the water. Yeah. Yeah. Get in their ass. Oh, look at the bras. The bras jumping their ass. Cause y'all were wrong for jumping on that black man like that, baby. What y'all thought was
Who want unity like that? When we as a people can understand unity like that, then the advantage is going to stop taking. Then is when they're going to stop taking advantage. And so when you see the ganging up against your leaders, who in many instances have your best interests at heart, join the fight and gang up against them and figuratively beat them back. Do what you got to do to safeguard your own interests as a people, not as an individual. Individualism don't count, because if you look at a pointer, it's easy if you broke them. But put all them pointers together and see if you can hold them together and break them. You can hardly bend them in most instances. And that is what we want in this season of election. That is what we need in this season of election. Don't people let people come and tell you stupidness and play emotion. Granger come at the gas station and he been by his friend Zap and he come in the village and say thank you. Some people prefer sweet talk and words and action. The Granger government had taken actions to say to Buxton people, you counted. To say to Buxton people, we appreciate your efforts. To say to Buxton people, we got you in mind. I'll give y'all a laugh. The same young man who was talking about what Granger did and what he didn't do and so on, said that when they were trying to form the co-op, they were getting a hard time from the Ministry of Social Protection. I want to tell you something. I really want to tell you something. All right, let me send you off to do some work, man. I ain't gonna say nothing. I want to save myself this morning. Check and see who the Minister of Social Protection was. Any of you on this live knows who the Minister of Social Protection was? Yeah, tell me. Right? Because if you understand who the Minister of Social Protection was, you'll understand why African people are having a difficult time fixing the business. Under the minister. They're going to understand why African people are having a freaking difficult time fixing the business under the minister. I see somebody say, Audrey Brown says I'm not. Well, people say you can't name, I gonna whistle, but I got no teeth right now. One of them missing. So I know if I could whistle good. Knock wood, it must never be allowed to happen again. It must never be allowed to happen again. Let me tell you all something about that same road project. There was another project. I'm trying to remember the name of the project. It was an empowerment project conceptualized by David Hines and others, including Vincent Jordan. And the financing for that project was first under one of Bolkan's ministry. That would have been Ministry of Public Works at the time, or whatever they call it. Public infrastructure. But the financing, the funding for that project was under Ronald Bolkan ministry. And I think it wasn't moving fast enough according to some people. And then it was transferred to the Ministry of Social Protection. And it died a gruesome death right there. Oh, it died a gruesome death right here. Right? Good. So it must never, not would be allowed to happen again. The lines are open. 622-5933. Regardless, that is a lesson for Black people. Regardless of how loyal that individual was, or regardless of how loyal they claim that individual was to a political party. Right? Regardless of how loyal they claim that individual was to a political party, which is a predominantly African Guyanese party in membership. When the time came to prove our loyalty or show fairness, not even loyalty to African Guyanese, projects that were intended to benefit them died some gruesome deaths. Call you on. Good morning.
Yes, good morning to you and all my Black brothers and sisters in Guyana. Happy Friday to all of you guys. I want to start first with this boxing problem because I don't like how them could go in boxing now and they get little children to suck them backside. Excuse me, the children supposed to be home when certain things concern. That boxing guy with the t-shirt, the red t-shirt. If you're listening, when you see politicians come in to your village, they come for ask you for your vote. They come for you for tell them what you want because they will say yes to everything. And when they go in office, you cannot blame them if them did not deliver because you did not allow them to tell you what they will do for you if you put them in office. You see the problem with us today in Guyana, we don't know politics and politics. Are you still there? Hello? Good. Now that young man run him out so long, let Muhammad tell you what he bring to the table so you could hold him accountable if you put him in office. Because if he tell you what he bring to the table and you tell them, you say, look, you all mention all these things, but I ain't get you wrong to do it. And you can't blame him. And when if that young man know, Muhammad did not make them get $100,000. It was a black man make them get $100,000. I wonder if that black boy know that Muhammad did not vote for change for black people 2015 and 2020. You see, we got to learn politics. Technology goes up. There's no excuse for young people. Just how they could find time for go cartel, they could find time for watch news, watch program, and learn from it. If their parents don't want to feed them. Now, that nonsense was performed there at Brooklyn towards my leader, them two young men got to call themselves lucky today because Flash Garden wasn't there, because I don't go and mix anymore when them get stopped into, because none of them Guyanese, them phony, none of them is like cow shit, excuse me language, dry a top and wet a bottom, because none of them cannot represent the leader. None of them who set out, they represent Bonham Foundation. There's nothing, but let me say loud and clear, who vex taking to the bank. Whenever Flash Garden here, that my leader coming to Brooklyn again, or anyone in fight by where I live, I will be there watching. I'm done to cut my mind because I'm 65 years old. I could go to jail for the rest of my life. Me done live my life already. This nonsense must stop with nothing. I have to leave that brother alone. Let use his 5 senses. And that let me tell him, I vex with him when he go outside there and protest from Mel. Mel go up on the stage. She never acknowledge that brother, and that brother fight for she in Guyana. But you see, Mark, Rickford Burke, Mel Brown, and John Thompson, when you dig a hole for someone, you got to dig your hole for yourself. Last, before I go, I believe it is time for my friend, Mr. David, move on. Last night, we listening to him. Bonham did not kill Walter Rodney. Let me repeat myself. Bonham did not kill Walter Rodney. Walter Rodney brother killed him. I said over and over, Walter Rodney brother should not take a powerful man like Walter Rodney for go and collect something illegal against the same government he fighting. He should leave Walter Rodney somewhere and go and take care of his business. David, I don't talk about this. When Walter Rodney got himself in problem in Jamaica, it's Bonham stand up for him. Bonham said, no, don't harm him. Send him back to his country. We get good evidence for that. And when the plane land at Timeri, that's the next thing I'll be not have to do. Change back their name to Timeri. Let you speak them American brothers and sisters. Both 2 cars was there for Walter Rodney. PNC car.
It looked like Flash Gordon got disconnected, but let me make it clear. I didn't disconnect Flash. Okay? So yeah, I don't feel like disconnected Flash. It looked like Flash got disconnected, but let me make it clear. I totally disagree with Flash. I will not sit here and say Bonham is innocent of Walter Rodney's death. It is obvious there were several actors in the planning and execution of Walter Rodney's murder. And I stand firm in my belief that Bonham had a part to play in it. Because nothing was going to happen of that nature, including a Guyana Defense Force officer, soldier, operative, and Bonham wasn't aware of it. I said it. And so Flash, yeah, Bonham tell them send him back home. 2 cars got to the airport to collect him and all of that. But that doesn't mean that he didn't become that thorn in Bonham's flesh that Bonham wanted him out of the way. Right, sir? Good. Caller, you're on. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Kadaki. Good morning to your viewers. I think, Mr. Kadaki, we have to acknowledge that we have an election to win. We have less than 4 months to go. We should be in a mood where we are desperate. This is do or die for Guyana. It's do or die for the regime. And if we don't get it right now, really, Guyana will be doomed. I am stressing this to the Guyanese people because some of us, we have selective memory, right? If we're believing that electing somebody who was sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department, if it's going to save us, well, we'll see the real brute force that what Guyana is going to get. Guyana will be in a position just as when the Palestinians elected Hamas as their governing or their ruling government. We're going to suffer the same fate. When I say we should be in a mood where it's do or die, when are we going to be seeing debates between Mr. Whoever is leading the opposition and whoever is participating? We want to see politicians put to the test. Let them offer, and I'm saying this because I need to see this from the WPA. I don't want to see it from anybody else. We have to take this to a next level. The standard of politicking in Guyana needs to change. And I will continue to say this because it's not just because you got a little money, you should participate or you run for president. We need to change the game of politicking. We need it, desperately need it, Mr. Kadaki. And I will continue to say I need to see this from the WPA because we have a race to win. Thank you, Mr. Kadaki, and have a great day.
Thank you for your call. The lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. You tune to the Guyanese Morning Time. I am your host, Kiraki Amsterdam. Call you on. Good morning.
Yeah. Yes, good morning, Mr. Amsterdam, and good morning, everyone in the Guyanese diaspora. Good morning to all Guyanese. I am pleasantly satisfied 40 years since that the WPA and the PNC have mended their wounds, and we are moving happily forward towards victory. I'm happy that that is happening. And so we have passed that bridge. No need to go and fall back in that pit. It's a trap off. So let's pick up our bundle and keep moving. Now, are the Guyanese people happy with the way in which the PPP has attempted to manage and govern Guyana? I think not. Because every month we are seeing one scandal after the next, and it's being highlighted by the international community regarding Guyana's leadership and bad governance. It happened under President Biden's administration. He found that the Mohammeds were culpable, and therefore they were sanctioned by an executive order. Those were the Democrats. Under Hello? Yes, under continuation, under George Bush's junior administration, the United States came again and sanctioned the entire PPP administration and sanctioned the Minister of Home Affairs. That was under Condoleezza Rice, Colin Powell. Those were Republicans. So if you sanction the Home Affairs, you're sanctioning the executive branch. Are we clear on that? So Jack Deere was president when Gadraj was sanctioned. And Clement Roy was sanctioned, and Henry Green was sanctioned. And again, they came this time and they sanctioned May Thomas. America keeps knocking on the door and telling the PPP, you are no good for this region. They don't have a foot to stand on. And I'm building a case. I'm showing us this is not a fluke. They wanted Raja Khan. Raja Khan was replaced. Now they got Muhammad. Same person, same scenario. And now today they're sanctioning the police. They already sanctioned May Thomas. So it's the same thing. They're sanctioning Jack Deere. And he knows it. The PPP government know they're under sanctions. Proper. Because those people that have been sanctioned there report directly to the executive branch. So, they sank Muhammad's, and the PPP were just like Raja Khan. They threw Raja under the bus. And they threw the Muhammads under the bus because persons ask, how did they fall out? They threw them under the bus. So that the Muhammads are responding. The PPP try to separate themselves from the Muhammads after the sanctions recently last year. So the Americans came again and sanctioned the PPP again under the police. A few months ago, they gave a report. I spoke about the report 2-3 weeks ago. Criminality, corruption, bribery, narco trafficking. If we listen to President Trump's policy on cartels at the Mexican border, what did he say? He says he's going to deal with all cartels, not some, all cartels as narco traffickers. Cocaine doesn't produce in Guyana. So then that cocaine is coming from Colombia, Bolivia, and dealing with Mexico. That cartel is funneling cocaine. And so the senior superintendent Shah and the rest of them, Demon and the rest of them, that has been sanctioned, etc., ETAL. The American government is saying again to the PPP, you're not fit to run this country and you're narco-terrorists. I didn't say that. That's what Donald Trump says. Because cocaine doesn't manufacture in Guyana, which means it's been trafficked by a cartel through Guyana. That means the Guyana police and the Guyanese government are involved in a narco-trafficking terrorism conspiracy. Terrorism, just like Maduro. Okay. Now, Guyanese, we are seeing what's happening with the Doubleday Hotel. We are seeing the shootings of the police brutality. And I'm saying, GCOM is saying they're not ready for elections. Considering all of these things that have happened, I think it's time that the people add our voice to it and say that we should have a referendum. If we can't get a no confidence vote in the National Assembly based upon all of these things that have happened for the last 20 years under the PPP, I think it's only proper that political leaders consider a public referendum. They had one in Mexico a few years ago. We can Google what a public referendum is. So if GCOM ain't ready and the PPP ain't ready, it's even more the reason, considering all the evidence, considering the recent sanctions yesterday by the American government. I think it's only proper that we move for a public referendum. And we could use Article 32 to buttress it. We can use all the evidence from the recent State Department's reports against Guyana as a basis to substantiate a referendum of zero public confidence and mismanagement, and have Irfan Ali removed, Jack Deere removed, and everyone else removed, and a public referendum. So it's something that we need to consider. Can hear you, sir. Yes, something we need to consider. If political persons are going to try to sidestep a public referendum and then tell us, well, we can't go to elections, then I know you're avoiding. We know you're avoiding because there are solutions. Once again, Mr. Amsterdam, thank you for giving me the time to talk to our people.
It seems as though if I don't tell Coffee wrap up, you don't wrap up, eh? I rather don't have to stay wrap up, but sometimes I provide guidance. What are you gonna do? Who did I answer? Somebody. Call it on. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam, to you and your listeners. On your early ramblings, you mentioned Afro-Guyanese youth were getting a hard time getting the project started on the Indian PNC minister. How, from that experience, how do you assess Mahipal in your current government, if he's going to be part of the government? And another thing, you think it was a mistake for the PNC in government honor a convicted terrorist in the Guyana Parliament? This is in connection with the sanctions individual and stuff. You think they made a mistake by honoring a convicted terrorist in Parliament? Thank you, Mr. Amsterdam, for taking my call.
Thank you for your call. If I don't answer, it's not because I can't answer, but I'd rather not answer. How about that? Mahipal has shown up until now his willingness to stand by his leader and stand by the political party he chose. In every step of the way, he has stood out and stood tall. Maybe he's the next Winston Murray, who he said anyhow. I think he said Winston Murray is the one who influenced him to join the PNC. So maybe he has learned from Winston Murray. That's all I will say. Call you live. Good morning.
All right, blessed good morning to you, Mr. Amsterdam, to your listeners at large. And now, a house divided by itself cannot stand. And you can't teach old dog new trick. Now, with the opposition party, major opposition party, no one has a problem with Mr. Norton. As a young person and a voter, I would like to give an analysis of how young people think. And the opposition party has the same old most of them are old members still activated in that party. And if we should recall why the young people are saying that the opposition in the previous government failed us, it's because we wanted justice. They sat in the seat and no one was accountable, no one got locked up. You have somebody that personally went and gave witness that they wanted to assassinate the president at that time was David Granger, and nothing come out of that story. How could the young people rely on that administration again when they failed us when we was looking to see justice brought to the people that was giving them, doing them wrong, especially to the black community? Now, one thing I want these, go ahead.
Put on my mic so that others can hear what I'm saying. In terms of the Granger assassination plot, you're saying nothing came out of that. Number one, things came out of that. I remember this guy went home for a fact. What's his name? Or wasn't promoted. A guy we were thinking would have definitely made commissioner of police and be a good commissioner of police. What was his name? He had this facial discoloration. Indo-Guyanese chap.
I know you're talking
very
about,
disciplined chap. Anyhow, he suffered as a result of that investigation.
I know you're talking about.
And let me that's one. Let me just point out that things. A commission of inquiry was held into that matter. Paulson, I think, was the chairman of that commission of inquiry. So some things came out of that. People were either demoted or stagnated, and this guy in particular, I think, wasn't promoted to a deputy commissioner or something, and he left the force. I remember all of that. But
Mr. Ramarine, I remember
Ramarine, good. David Ramarine, I think his name is. Right. But now you're asking the question how young people could put their trust in that administration, right? I am saying to you that administration is an administration of the past. The Granger administration is an administration of the past. And that is one of the weaknesses. That is one of the things we have. I am having a difficulty with people judging this current opposition leader or current coalition based on what transpired under the previous coalition. And I keep saying this. The people who are quote unquote leaders in this current coalition have never had ministerial power. Obinon was never minister in the government. Check it for yourself. David I was never minister in government. And a lot of people who are in the leadership of the PNC or APNU right now and WPF were never ministers of the government. They worked with the government, but they worked on the people in the government. And so now they are in that place to make decisions. I think it is only fair that you test them on their own merits.
I understand you, but what I'm trying to say is that the opposition is not transparent, because from a young voter point of view that follows especially news and media, they need to be more transparent and show the leaders that will be on this list, because persons are being carried around concept like you saying, because we're thinking you have the same, yes, you have new management, which is Mr. Norton. I agree, you wasn't given a chance to give to do what he wanted to do or so. But then we know that they have other person members in these parties that are still on the list, and especially on the parliamentarian list. So they need to be transparent so the young people could see it's new generation, new ideas, and not the old ways. And this is what they're losing point on. Now we have an election coming, and only the WPA is on the ground or going out and outreach. What happened to the opposition leaders? They're not in these other community, and this is why others parties or members are capitalizing on those area where they're not going into their own supporter base and capitalize on the people, and because they're not on the ground. And this is what everybody was saying, you had 5 years, you were out of power. Why didn't you use that to come and go on the ground and meet your people? Why wait when you want to go in power? And this is what a lot of politicians don't understand. If you want the people on your side, when you're in power, you meet the people on the ground. When you're out power, you meet the people on the ground. But when you sit down and you have a small party like yourself, I mean, I give credit to you. If I know that your party has the cloud, because I generally know that you fighting, Mr. Dr. David Hines are fighting, but the other people are looking at other ways of getting, like for instance, you only could use a thief to catch a thief, and this is what people are looking at. A thief will know where a thief will come in and the thief ways of thinking. And that's where these other parties are building a point on the other hand, or the other regime we're talking about that is fighting against the PPP. But the opposition are showing they're weak in getting out their support base because they're not going into the support base. Kudos to you and the WPA. You are fighting for the rights of people, but the main opposition party are not doing nothing. And they're not transparent on our leadership. And that's the problem with the opposition leader. So the old person, I don't like when they criticize other people's opinion, because they have their own opinion. We have our own opinion. But old people need to know that the young people doesn't want to go to no old politics where old way as in you vote for your kind. That's the old base. We look at policies now and we look at betterment, changes. And that's what all the voters need to understand. We have nothing against Arby Norton, but the people that are there under him, he's not transparent, so we think it's the same old ways. And that's my contribution. Thank you.
I thank the caller for his contribution. And there's some things I want to say. It's 1:09. There's some things I want to say in response to that. Number one, yes, there's no doubt that you're going to have people on this current list who were in the past list. No doubt. right? But leadership matters. And I'm saying leadership matters because if you look at, go right back to the Granger administration, the way the police behaved under the PPP, they behave differently under Granger. And the way the police are behaving now, under this current PPP government, they behave differently under the Granger government. So leadership matters. So you might very well have some parliamentarians who, or some party members even, who have not performed and have not responded the way they should have responded or were expected to respond under the Granger administration or under the Granger list, because Granger is still leader of this list. But we'll do totally different when they are answerable directly to Aubrey Norton or whoever the leadership of the coalition is come the next election. But what I can say to you, and this is something a lot of people have not read, I've been saying it all the time, what I can say to you is a lot of people who you see are jumping ship from the PNC or from the APNU. Let me say the APNU because that is what it is. A lot of people who are jumping ship from the APNU are people who recognize that in their own minds and in the minds of the current leadership, they behave so badly that they don't stand a chance to find themselves back on that list to be in parliament or anywhere close to government. And that is why a lot of them jump in ship, because they have recognized that this current leadership of the coalition or this current leadership of the APNU will not tolerate half of the nonsense that they carried on with under the past coalition arrangement. And so they know that they got to find somewhere else because they ain't got no room for them. It's as simple as that. That is how I see it. So again, I'm saying you can't beat up this current leadership of the coalition for the Granger coalition and what the Granger coalition did. They say get Jackie jacket. You have to give them an opportunity to prove themselves. If you give them that opportunity and they fail, then by all rights, go to the poll the next election and put them out. By all rights, protest them during their period of government. By all rights, call them out during the period of government. By all rights, hold them accountable during their period of government. But you can't say I'm going to keep you all out of government because the Granger administration behaved badly when you all had no control of it. Because that's a fact. Many people might not know, but insiders know that Aubrey Norton almost got nothing whatsoever for all of his political work under the Granger administration. Insiders know that. Aubrey was sometimes I get the impression people might feel I'm an Aubrey defender, but I'm not an Aubrey defender. I like to get Jackie jacket and I like to call things how I see them. I believe in honesty. Aubrey was chucked in an office, not even close to the office of the president. Not even close to the office of the president. And so the few projects that he was able to get accepted and done under the Granger government, give thanks to that. They were impactful. They were impactful. The night school was an idea of Aubrey Norton, I think. Then you had the child care centers and so on and so forth. But you think he didn't have to fight tooth and nail for it? So let me give Jackie jacket, right? And give the current leadership of the coalition an opportunity to prove themselves. But I keep telling people, regardless of who is put forward for leadership and who is put forward on the slate, they can't make themselves president. They can't win an election. It is the people who will make them win an election. It is your votes that will make them win an election. That the party leadership and those on the list, I think is 65 on the list or something like that. Let me say 100 on the list. Even if that entire 100 were to vote for their list, that is not enough to make them win. It's the voters that gotta make the win. It's 4 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. Y'all know me. On Fridays, I just beat out and go about my business. I think we have had a good discourse this morning. Forgive me for your voice notes if I didn't play any, as a matter of fact. Right? So yeah, I can't say I discriminate this morning. I played no voice notes. I took the few calls I could have taken. I'll see you all on Monday. Have a great week. Have a great time. TikTok talkers, I'm likely to try to do a TikTok over the weekend using this desktop app because I usually prefer working from my desktop. So I'll see how that plays out, and we'll see because I'm still learning about TikTok. You're never too old to learn. I'll have a good day. Goodbye. Much love. Tough love is love too. Don't forget that. Megan.